Hey, this is Sarah. I bet you're wondering why I had you listen to that piano piece before you watched my speech. I'll explain that a little bit later. But first, I am going to tell you a story. It's a story about a little girl whose dream it was to play the music. When she was 4 years old, she begged her parents to let her start taking piano lessons. By begged, I mean every night before she went to bed and every night before dinner. When she was 5, she was allowed to start taking piano lessons. And her first teacher was a gentleman who had played his entire life. But later, he had developed Parkinson's. So at that time, he could barely even hold a cup without spilling the liquid that was in it. When he sat down at that piano and he played, he didn't miss a note. It was flawless. And she would sit there listening and watching and think, I want to do that. I want to play the music. So he taught her. He taught her theory, he taught her notes, he taught her timing, but he didn't quite teach her the one thing that she wanted to learn. He didn't teach her how to play the music. She grew a little bit and her first recital came. She was so terrified of playing in front of a whole bunch of people that her mother had to do a duet with her in order to convince her even to get up on the stage. She did. She got up. They had their music. But partway through her part, she forgot. And she ran off the stage crying and embarrassed, and she said she didn't ever want to play in front of people ever again. She kept growing. She kept taking lessons. She had a couple different teachers. She learned jazz, she learned blues, contemporary, but probably her favorite was classical. She still, though, hadn't learned how to play the music. Now, when she was 13 years old, she had her third recital. Now, this time she had her sheet music, she had her music memorized, and she was playing in front of her entire 8th grade class. So she got up on that stage and she sat down at the piano and she began to play. And her hands got cold and clammed up and her chest constricted, and she forgot the music she had memorized, and she forgot how to read the notes. She ran off the stage crying and ashamed and said that she would never, ever play in front of people ever again. She could play the piano, but she couldn't play the music. Now, her teacher was a performing classical pianist, so he knew what it was like to try and perform in front of people and to deal with stage fright. And he tried to teach this to her. He tried just about every single method that he could think of to teach her how to play the music. She couldn't do it. After many failed attempts, he finally said, okay, let's try this. And he put a piece of music in front of her. It wasn't hard, it was simple, just 2 pages in length. She knew she could play it, but she was scared. She wasn't scared of her ability or the piece. She was scared of the music, which she could not play. But she had to try. So she sat and she put her hands on that piano and began to play. And once again, her hands clammed up and her chest constricted, and tears welled up in her eyes. She took her fingers from the keys and she sat ashamed. Her teacher sat a minute and looked at her, and he told her to calm down. And he told her to close her eyes. He said, think of that piece, think of that music. Think of it as colors creating shapes in your mind. And I want you to close your eyes and tell me what you see. So she did. She sat with her eyes closed a minute, and she saw a butterfly. A single butterfly playing in the wind, floating with the leaves, climbing up and down in the warm sun. She sat and described this butterfly to him and all of the adventures that it had. And when she opened her eyes, he told her, I don't want you to play me the piano. I don't want you to play me the music. I want you to play me the butterfly. So she put her hands on the keys and she played. She played the butterfly, she played the wind, she played the warm sun, and in that moment, for the first time, she played the music. All good things have to come to an end at some point, right? So as she progressed with this piece, next came her recital. She was terrified. She was sure that she wouldn't remember the music, that she wouldn't remember how to play, but she had to try. So she walked out onto that stage, and all she could think of was the fear and the people staring at her. Her shoes seemed too loud and her breath seemed too ragged, but she willed herself to sit down at that piano and put her hands on the keys. When she did so, her fingers started to clam up and get cold, and her chest constricted, and she told herself, I can't do this. I can't play the music, let alone play in front of these people. But as she said that to herself, she saw it. She saw the butterfly, the leaves, the sun. But she didn't just see it this time. She was the butterfly. She felt the warm sun and the warm breeze, and she felt herself playing in the wind and with the leaves. And right then, she understood. She knew what it meant. At that recital, she didn't play the piano. She didn't play the music. She played her heart right out onto those keys, and from which it touched every single person listening to her. Now, in case you couldn't tell, that girl was me, and that song that taught me how to play the music was the piece I had you listen to at the first part of my speech. So if you could, I'd like you to go back and listen to it again, and close your eyes, and think of a young girl sitting there playing the butterfly. And when you think of that, think that anything that is worth doing is something that you shouldn't give up on, even if it takes you 13, 14, 15 years. If it is a dream that you have when you were as young as 3 and 4 years old, then you know this has to be something worth doing.